speaking with a friend of mine earlier, and we were talking about personality tests and specifically Myers-Briggs type indicator, the typical INTP, ENFJ, those types of personality tests, and the Ocean, the big five personality tests. And he asked me something to the effect of, what do you think of personality tests? And I'm like, to be honest, man, I don't really believe in them. Now, the reason I don't is because, and we were discussing this in our conversation, is for a couple of reasons. Number one, the results of the test is going to depend on, to a certain degree, your mood. So how you're feeling at that time. You may be feeling a bit more social, a bit more outgoing, or you may be like in a depressed state, or you may find yourself in a specific situation contextually that's going to actually filter your answers. Or you may be at a certain stage in your life where the way you answer the questions now will be different than the way you're going to answer them like in a couple of years from now, or the way you would have answered them 5 years ago, as an example. So it's going to be a short video for all of the reasons that I just mentioned. I wouldn't put much stock in personality tests, because also what it does to your psychology is it locks you, it binds you, it categorizes you, it limits you. And you might think, no, it doesn't limit me. It allows me to see what? What does it allow you to see? Like what job they tell you that is going to be a good fit for you? Is that what it allows you to see? So you're going to allow some test that some guy created, some guy in his lab, right? Verified by other eggheads, that you're meant to go in a certain direction. Is that not something you want to discover for yourself? Do you not want to wonder a little bit and be a little bit curious and try different things and really analyze and see who are you really? Because here's the thing, you actually may not be an introvert. As an example, this is just one example. You may be an extrovert, or you may be slightly more extrovert, or 50-50. This was kind of like more in my case. I was more shut down when I was younger because I had a lot of pain and trauma to deal with that I didn't know how to deal with. And I was trying to find the answers and figuring things out, but I wasn't really much of an extrovert. That transition happened gradually over a period of like 10 years. Same with the feeler versus perceiver, or if you're slightly more open or more neurotic. Now, listen, conscientiousness and things of that nature, and neuroticism and orderliness, like these are things that typically they are dispositional. But all you have to do is really pay attention to what your weaknesses are, and then work on on those weaknesses. Or if you're running a business, or if you're part of a company, orient yourself towards the things that you're good at, but make sure that you're plugging in the holes, plugging in your gaps, filling in your gaps, as far as understanding, okay, so this is how I operate. And I noticed that I tended to move towards this direction. Now, what are some of the options that I would want to exercise that would allow me to leverage my strengths? And what are some of the things that I could be cognizant of that would hold me back, or would limit me? For example, let's say, for example, you're not very orderly. Maybe you want to put in a little bit of an extra effort to do that, because you notice that it's actually hindering certain aspects of, say, running your business, right? You're not a very organized person. And so you want to make sure that you're putting systems in place that allow you to be more organized. But that realization does not come from a personality test. It comes from you paying attention to your life. Like, yeah, let me tell you where, like, don't tell me, where I am. So you have to tell yourself, you have to ask yourself and really sit with yourself and reflect and find out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses in practice. Who are you in practice? Contextually, who are you? When you're in different states of mind, who are you? How do you act? And then how do you basically use everything that I've been teaching to put you in a more grounded state, but also recognize that you are gonna life is undulating, right? There are ups and there are downs, there are highs and there are lows. And typically what you want to be doing is you want to be kind of trending upwards, so that your lows are a little bit higher, so they're not as low, and your highs are a little bit higher. Or you could, ask some people where it's like you're kind of flattening the curve. So you're not having extreme highs or extreme lows. You're not flatlined, right? You're not flatlined, but you're more at peace. You have greater equanimity. Doesn't mean you don't have the energy. You still have the energy, But remember, personality tests, what they're going to do is they're going to categorize you, and they're going to inherently limit your perspective, right, over things that you can and can't do, or should and shouldn't do, or who you are and who you're not. And now all of a sudden you go through life thinking, I'm this, right? I'm an ENFP. I am an INTJ, like a little robot taking a little test and then figuring out, okay, this is what this test tells me that I am. Therefore, that's what I am. That is what I am. This is my horoscope. I'm a Sagittarius. You're a Gemini. Oh, you're two-faced. Do you understand how ridiculous that sounds? Do you? So anyway, don't box yourself in. Don't limit yourself. Don't categorize yourself for all the reasons that I mentioned. Contextually, right? It's the context that you're in is going to frame, is going to filter the answers that you give. Same with your mood. Same with your current circumstance, not just the context, but the stage of life that you're in. So you're going to gradually evolve over time. So it's not going to help you if you believe that you're a certain way when you're trying to evolve. You're like trying to evolve. You're taking a personality test, and they're like, "No, this is what you are." Right? Now, this is what you are. And you're trying to evolve, and they're like, "This is what you are." You tell me if you think that's helpful. How is that helpful? It doesn't really, you think it's going to help understand. It's going to help you generate understanding internally. That's what you think. You're like, I found out through the ocean thing that I'm not very conscientious. Oh, you didn't know that before? Really? You didn't know that you weren't orderly before you took the test? You didn't know that? You didn't know that. Really, you didn't know that you were neurotic before you had to take a test. You already knew that. The real, the real, the real way to actually address any weaknesses that you have is not by taking a personality test, because again, these things might reveal stuff, might reveal information about you, maybe in a general sense, but typically more of like in a contextual sense. However, it doesn't do anything else other than just allow you to see what you could have seen had you been a little bit more attentive. But now the problem is this, is that if you don't work on developing the life that you want, on building habits, on building skills, on working towards principles and virtues, if you don't actually do all of that stuff, and through that you're going to discover what some of the personality tests might show you temporally in the moment. If you don't do that and you just focus on the test, then all you've done is generated a moment's awareness. You've generated awareness for a moment in time. But the problem there is that you will take that moment of awareness and it'll either dissipate pretty quickly because all you did was take a test, or you're just going to believe that that's who you are, right? And that's a problem. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. This was really more of like a rant on personality tests, but yeah, just take them with a grain of salt. Don't put too much stock in them. They're not going to do you much good. But yeah, I mean, it's really about living life and experiencing life and seeing what you can do and what you can't do and what your weaknesses are and where your strengths are, and the things that you can't do, maybe you want to work on them, or maybe you don't care and maybe you just want to do something else. But you have to actually discover that through the doing. If you have limited experiences and then you take a personality test, how the hell would you know? How would you know if you actually scored properly? So in addition to all the stuff that I mentioned about mood and context, about stage of life, if you haven't had experiences and you're like, oh, I'm an EN, I'm an IN, whatever, right? How would you know that? Especially if you've had limited experiences, especially if you're younger. How would you know that? You wouldn't know that. So please, for the love of God, don't put stock in personality tests, because honestly, they're not going to help you, right? I didn't need the ocean, the big five, to tell me that I'm not orderly. I'm not an orderly person, right? I already know that. I'm a bit chaotic. Like, I got notes everywhere. I got books everywhere. I got my notes here. I got a binder there. I got my notes on my phone. I got a computer here, two screens. You know what I mean? I got another phone, my old phone with my notes. So I'm basically taking all this information and I'm learning how to put it together. But I didn't need a personality test to tell me that I wasn't organized. I knew that since I was 10 years old. Now I've been working on it, so I've been getting better. But you don't need some test to tell you, right? You have to be attentive and aware, because the more attentive and aware of how you are on a daily basis, the more you can actually generate techniques to help you solve problems, to like fill in those gaps and fill in those holes. As opposed to taking a test, the other risk of the test is, like I said, you evolve over time. The test doesn't evolve. The test is what it is. So yeah, rant over. If you like this video, like it, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to my newsletter as well. I read some pretty good articles there, I think. New one is coming out. And yeah, that's it for me. If you have a comment, leave it down below.